Good afternoon. Sorry for being late.
Good afternoon. No worries. I think you were about 1 minute late. I think that's acceptable.
Good.
Hello, Inga and Sam. Looks like Catherine's here too. Excellent.
If we have 3 more, we'll have the Brady Bunch.
Guess we're just missing Jeff. And it looks like we have a guest.
Yes, it
We have
does.
a guest. Yeah, oh, there's Jeff.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm a little late.
Hey, Jeff.
Okay, so today we are continuing on with the key findings and key recommendations with the document that was sent out by Ed. And that was reviewed by the subcommittee. And then we also have some comments. Jeff, you had made comments on the last draft. So we will incorporate those in today's discussion. I will share the screen.
Inga, is this the one that went out that I sent out yesterday or, over the weekend?
Yes,
Okay.
it's whatever, yeah, your last one was.
Yeah. So that's where I tried to pick up from what was done last week. So we don't have to go over that again.
All right, Ed, since this is your group's document, you want to take it away?
Sure, with Mark and Catherine chiming in because we did get to spend some time twice to go over everything to make sure we were in agreement between the 3 of us. Obviously, it's open to anybody else's comments, but hopefully you'll catch the 3 of us being in sync. So the first thing in red was just a recognition that there's a lot of background information available in the appendix, and I'm not sure what it's going to be named, but calling people's attention to what's there, that the information's available. Just a reminder to join the meeting. And that there was information needed from DEQ to potentially reach consensus on many conditions. Just to give folks a flavor of what is available out there as an appendix and what we either made a decision using as information, like the landfill and neighborhood tours, or information we still haven't gotten that could have been useful, like the DEQ. Do the words convey what I just expressed?
So since no one else is making a comment, I'll just add to what Ed portrayed here is we felt that this was important to lead our findings with this to kind of frame out the rest of the work, including the findings and recommendations. What of course is missing is what those, like Ed had already said, those appendices, and then some of the, where we need to add in to finish this. I would just ask if anybody has any friendly amendments to this particular finding. I agree that it's important that we kind of bring our readers to this space as we enter this document.
I'm fine with this language.
Yeah, me too. We discussed this last week that you were going to add this to direct people to that work group document.
Okay, good. The next two are no change, no changes in wording. It's a change in ordering. Bringing those two up early into the document. And Mark, you were the kind of helping us structure that a little bit. Maybe you could give your reason for doing that.
Sure. Turn my camera back on. I just thought that after all the work that the subcommittee had put into the process, these were, I think, two overarching findings, not only in terms of the whole, our understanding of the process, but also the significance of and the importance of conditions of approval. And so I think that these need to be highlighted, and I'm also concerned with the length of the document and all those sorts of things. I'm not sure how deep people are going to go into these findings, and so I wanted them to be upfront. And then just on the first finding, I don't know, Inga, if you need to highlight those places where links are still needed there, and also in the last line as well. Thanks. Questions or thoughts on that?
I'm okay with the move, Jeff.
I'm with me.
Great, thanks.
So
This
this
next
is brand new, right?
Yeah, this one we got stuck at a little bit because, quite frankly, we couldn't remember the Supreme Court date or the ruling date, whether it was 93 or 98. And Jeff, you probably know that from the top of your head, but we didn't.
I think it's 98, but I also don't think this condition is quite correct. This finding is quite correct. I have been spending some time with the 1983 decision, and as I read it, it actually is the decision that eliminated the restriction to a certain number of counties. One of the amendment, according to the staff report, which was adopted as findings, after the 74 decision, the county amended the comprehensive plan to put the restrictions into the comprehensive plan. And then one of the modifications to the comprehensive plan was in 1983 was to abolish those restrictions. And the staff report said that effectively ended that limitation. So I actually think that that was the decision that that changed the limitation.
Okay.
Happy to send that information out if people want to see it.
Yeah, that would be good, because I'm thinking what I recall of 1983, there were actually changes to add 2 counties.
That's what I remember as well. It was, there were 3 counties initially, and then 83 had 5 counties.
Well, I'll go back and check.
But Inga's doing the check for us right away.
I was actually looking at this today myself. So the policy that was deleted, I think that one that you're referring to, Jeff, is the one that, let's see, where is it? The 28 here, Benton County shall not allow any new expansion of the present Coffin Butte landfill service area. So that was deleted by the 1983.
Could you scroll up again a little bit? To see, because it had a header on that. Delete that.
Yeah, it says delete it.
Yeah.
So this was an existing policy that was deleted by the 1983 decision. And nothing similar was added in.
There were some additions.
Yeah,
There-
I think,
Well, there were new policies. I'm not saying there weren't any new policies, but
well, here it is.
so
number
this one
20
still exists.
Yeah, number 27.
Right, but they deleted the one that said you shall not expand.
So I
that-
think the question, and this is really helpful, Inga, and I'm glad you have that. So this is the comp plan change, right, that we're talking about.
Yeah,
I'm curious then, so just by deleting that they shall not limit expansion, I think what we were looking for is to point to the actual space where in a land use decision that expansion had occurred, like there was an approval given for an expansion. This kind of sets the table, if you will, for that to occur, but we were not
Mhm.
able to find where it actually did occur in document. So I don't know if anybody knows.
Yes.
That was the question for us.
I agree with you that, and I couldn't find anything. That it's probably in one of the franchise agreements, but nothing that I could see in a land use document.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, and that's helpful too, would a franchise agreement supersede, would we need, I don't know, it's truly a question. Would we need to have evidence of it in a land use process? Or would the franchise agreement give that authority to not have that occur in a land use process, but allow that expansion? So there may be some of the nuances we were looking for, if we can firm that up a little better. I do think that this is helpful, though, to the point of what we're looking at.
Well, I think what number 27 is, to me, what it says is the landfill shall serve Lynn, Polk, and Benton counties, that it has to serve those counties, but it leaves it open. Other than that, with the removal of the restriction on expansion, it leaves it open otherwise. And then, let's see, I don't know that we would, in a land use decision, we would, up until the Supreme Court decision, and within that time frame, I don't know that we would need a land use decision to say, okay, you're able to now go out and get solid waste from these other counties. There wouldn't have been any need for a land use decision to do that.
Yeah, the problem I'm having with that expansive, saying it's for anywhere is with 25, where it says coordinated with the solid waste actions, programs, and policies of the solid waste management plan, or its successor, and that one is limited to the 3 counties.
But that doesn't limit where waste can come from. That just says we'll keep coordinating with that group.
Okay.
But can somebody clarify? My recollection is that not the coordination part of working with that group, but the actual Chemeketa Solid Waste Management Plan did limit those, right? That's how I remember it.
No, the plan didn't limit where waste was coming from. The 74 decision limited it to the areas within the plan. And then that got changed as a result of this decision.
Okay,
Yeah.
so again, bear with me while I make sure I understand what I'm hearing. So the Chemeketa Solid Waste Management Plan gave us, X areas of which we would take waste from. That's the policy of which we were operating under. This document doesn't change that. That says that we will coordinate with that plan, right? So I still don't see the actual action where we, just help me out, pretend I'm the average reader looking at this, and if this is it's just a question to confirm it. I still don't see where 28 gives us, in relativity to the Chemeketa Solid Waste Management Plan, or number 27, I don't see an automatic, we have given permission to, and let's go and start collecting from what turns out ultimately to end up being where we're at now. I'm not sure that I'm seeing a solid space. Like it could maybe be interpreted that way, but
Well, I'm not going to say that this decision is a model of clarity because it is not. Not even close. But if the prohibition is removed, then it becomes a business decision, not a land use decision. So I suspect this combined with changes to the franchise, that's how the amount of the areas where waste came from evolved over time. And so that's my interpretation of this, and that's what the staff report at the time said it did. But you know, it's not. I'm not going to say absolutely bet my law license on it for sure, but that's what it looks like to me, and that's about the time when we started coming from other areas. So I think that's what happened. So I don't think you can say nothing changed from 1974 to the Supreme Court decision in '98.
So the thing that's a little confusing to me is we're running this on the fly, and I know that we're the ones that are proposing this finding, but there is a decision, and I don't know when it is, but there is another decision that lists 5 counties, and I don't know if it happened in there's, because I think it adds Marion and Polk to that list of 3, and so I'm not comfortable in getting rid of this if that was what the direction we're headed, without doing some more research, because boy, we looked at this stuff a long time ago, and there's been a lot of work, but has gone on in between now and then. I just can't cite where that is, and maybe Ed remembers. I don't.
Well, why don't we leave that one in red and come back to it after people have been able to go back and do some research.
Yeah, and could you send the documents you think you may have done it in the past? I just don't know. I don't recall.
Sure.
I don't remember something got sent around, but you know, that's probably, if you wouldn't mind doing it, it would be appreciated.
I will do it.
And this is one I'm to blame for. Was it when I went back and was just looking at the reclamation issue. I went and there were 2 conditions in 74, the original setup of the landfill, that have criteria for visual appearance screening and abutting screening from the abutting road, grazing, farm type operation, et cetera, et cetera. And this is also in the 83 document that's, you know, being contested. And what's it was just to point out that those conditions for visual appearance, et cetera, haven't been contested. Nothing in that 74 document's been objected to. All we've talked about in 74 is the geographic service area. So I wanted to just bring that out to point out it's there. So it's still, I believe, a valid condition of approval.
Well, again, the 1983 decision said that it was intended to replace the 1974 decision. So I don't think that's entirely accurate. And some of that decision covers some of the same ground.
Yeah, and the other side of that, if you're contesting that 83 is null and void because of the way it was filed, then it can't supersede 74 because it's not a valid decision. Because
Well,
it's a circular argument here again.
well, there's a lot of the 73 or 83 decision that was, and, you know, all we're talking about in the 83 decision is in terms of what we're contesting is the revisions to the site plan and narrative that happened after the decision was made. The decision does have other things in it that would apply, and one of those is in the staff report, which says that the intent was that the new plan would supersede the old plan. So I think that's an open question. Again, boy,
go back to it and look at it again.
Yeah, I wish it was more clear. It's not very well written. But that's how I piece it together.
Okay.
And so just again, for a point of clarity, because it does seem like we keep wandering around in different territories with these decisions. If it's the staff report that we're using as a basis for the 1983 decisions superseding 1974 or replacing 74, that opens up a whole nother thing to where we're now no longer taking records of decision, we're taking staff report content and contextual content and assuming that's the final decision-making process. And I know we have already had this conflict in other spaces, and that 83 is one of them, where, well, it didn't specifically say that. So if the notice of decision didn't specifically say it, but the staff report did, we've argued that the site plan and narrative wasn't qualified in that space because it wasn't specifically stated as such. This is that same space. If it was a staff report statement and it wasn't stated as such in the notice of decision, then is the assertion that the staff report states that 83 replaces 74 any more valid than the fact that we are not including the site plan and narrative because it doesn't specifically state, you know, it wasn't just providing it, but the contents of that site plan and narrative. And I'm hoping I'm saying that well enough that you're following me all. We've talked about this space a lot. But I am concerned, I guess, generally that we are talking about staff report assertions are now being considered affirmations of a land use decision when in fact they really are not.
Well, the Board of Commissioners decision expressly incorporated the staff report and its appendices as findings in support of its decision. So the staff report was adopted as the analysis there as the findings for the decision. The issue with regard to the site plan and narrative is that the decision basically said you have to go back and expand the site plan and narrative to address, you know, 5 or 6 different topics. And it did, and then that was submitted after the fact, and it was not specifically incorporated by reference. And of course, our argument is that it couldn't be because it wasn't before the decision maker. And in order to be incorporated by reference, it has to be before the decision maker. So that's the argument. I think it's different, but that's what my legal position is.
Yeah, and it's just going around, as Catherine said, because, you know, my recollection was the staff had directed and collected those reports that we're saying now that are not valid because they weren't part of the decision. So, you know, I'm having a little difficulty here saying in one case, reports that were submitted to the staff at the staff's direction can't be included in the decision, but the staff report, which mentions those reports, can be. You know, we just have to look at the specific wording.
Ed, are you supposing that this recommendation number 8 is your recommendation to that finding?
Yeah, for both of them, actually. And the green part was what we had initially. There's the whole thing is just murky. So that's where it came back to clarify, communicate what appropriate reclamation will look like, and get the community involved with it, and come up with a plan for the ultimate disposition of the landfill.
So your finding simply states that the reclamation is listed in those two land use documents. So, I mean, that's all it says. It's reclamation is in this land use file and reclamation is here. So when you explained it, I think you expanded on it a little bit more deeply, but what you wrote is actually very innocuous, and it just makes a statement, and I have no problem with that.
Can I read that again? Could you scroll back up there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with that. As long as we are.
As we get back on track. Thank you, Inga. Appreciate you reading this stuff.
Okay, let's move down. Oh, we got a lot of stuff that we agreed on. Yay. 23. Conditions are, and that's looks like just an editing to me, correct?
That's all it is.
All right, recommendations.
And it was just changing, including, trying to make a lot of the sentences follow include. So getting the tense right and the action right. So this one is just following up on the first one of getting the appendix in the final work group report, not just put on the wayside, and making them available to the public.
Fine with that.
Two is really an access issue.
Mhm.
Not just keep it around, but make it so people can get at it.
What's the difference between 1 and 2?
So the first one is just that we are maintaining that. The second one is leaning towards,
Making it a-
right,
yeah.
access. So maybe we could even help support that statement by saying to increase public accessibility, or just to increase accessibility, even might just nudge that
Yeah, was the
that
intent.
statement.
Yeah.
And then can you scroll up to the lead in here? But key recommendations for Benton County include. So this is Sister Mary Fenton and Sister Mary Borgia tag team taught my 6th grade English class. And I'm just wondering why, usually it's, you're making them do it. You're saying to the board, maintain this, not maintaining it. First, and so did you guys go over that, decide that Sister Mary Fenton and Sister Mary Borgia were wrong? And if,
Yes.
if they are,
Yes,
if they
we
are,
voted them
that's
out.
fine.
We did.
Okay, and then,
We spent a lot
No.
of time on this, Sam.
okay, and you're
No.
gonna call them and tell them that directly, are you?
Because this is how this was teed up for our last subcommittee meeting, we made every effort to put it in that active tense, rather than kind of what I would consider just a recommendation. So if we change that first statement, which is what we were working with, so we didn't change it, it would be easier and more intuitive if we had key recommendations for Benton County, strike the word include, and then change the text tense of all of these recommendations. So number 1 would read maintain the CUP appendix. Number 2 would be make the appendix. It's a more assertive, clear recommendation, but we didn't want to just assume, because so many of these were already in that kind of tense. I think it's fair to say, Ed, maybe, and Mark, that we'd be okay going back to maintain the CUP appendix.
Yes,
we were just looking for consistency to try to cut it short. Get the revisions done.
I just think it's more direct. You're telling them to do something.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
For what it's worth, I think the board members would side with the sisters. in this issue.
Thank God. Otherwise they would burn in hell, Darren.
Well, I'm going to avoid that one, but I think it makes sense to be more direct. If you all feel comfortable, I would appreciate it.
We're very happy to hear that. We did bounce around this quite a bit at our last meeting, but
Yeah.
we opted not to change it and just stay with where it had already been.
We
kind of
just followed
established.
what was in front of us.
We
didn't wanna
did.
we didn't want to steer
Well,
the ship the wrong direction.
Which
That's
we also appreciate, Mark and Catherine.
Yeah, it's also the first time you've ever done that. So I was
Yeah.
shocked when I read it. That's why.
Oh,
I
wow.
bring it up.
Nice. Nice, Sam.
Boom,
The low blows, wow.
boom.
Just trying to get through this, that's all.
Can I ask another question while we're on recommendation 2? You say a couple of times in here, historical files, and I wonder, were you thinking something different than just Benton County records? I mean, is there a distinction, an important distinction between historical files and other files?
Yes, I think there are. I think there
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
Because I think that we have, at least I've gotten the impression that once this work is over, the files that we've been using, the electronic files that we've been using going back to 74, that those are not really going to be accessible to the public. And correct me if I'm wrong, Inga, but I think that that's what you've indicated, that that those won't be available.
Not on the FTP website. Yeah, we're gonna have to come up with some other way because those things will just keep disappearing every month and a half.
So that's what we're talking about,
So-
Darren, is making sure that those documents, which were the founding documents for this work, don't like disappear somewhere. Although we don't have to really worry about that because Ed downloaded all 1.5 gigabytes. And so if we have to, we can put them out on the web somewhere
Just
else.
put C-Ed, right? C-Ed
Yeah,
for
C-Ed.
historical. So
Well, let's talk about that just quickly. So I would say I had a little bit of heartburn with the earlier finding that the county does not and has not enforced. And I think I understand what you're trying to get at there, but I also think that until this process, we didn't have that collection of documents at hand, at least in my department. I mean, one of the huge values of this work is that we've had to go back and find where are all those old documents. And Daniel spent the better part of 3 weeks tracking down every box that he could possibly find and dragging them out, in many cases from squirrel infested back corners of Benton County. So now that we've gone to that effort, I actually think we want to make them available. And I know our current FTP site has limitations. Okay, fine. But we really I think we want this history publicly accessible, not just through Ed Patera. So I want to make sure we understand what your intentions are so that when we put forward the recommendation of the board, we're honoring that. And my strong inclination is for us to be more transparent and to make these available forever so that whoever wants to go back and see the history can see it.
I think right now we have the issue with our website is that it limits the amount that we can upload, the size of a document we can upload. So that's, I mean, a new website system is going to what, the end of the year it's going to be put into place.
By the end of this calendar year, we expect to have a modern website, which much of this will become moot.
Mhm.
And
So
it's
just
including it in that new website.
so to nod to the comments now that are going on in this space is, so recommendation 2 is, I think, something we're all agreeing to. Is it helpful to, again, another friendly amendment, making the appendix and supporting historical files related to the Coffin Butte landfill? Is that clarifying a little bit better? And then to make continuously, so adding the word continuously, and that would maybe bridge the gap between the hiccups we currently have. It's a recommendation. We're hearing that it's in process, which is great. But here, at least we're packaging this recommendation a little bit, and maybe that language change will make it easier for you to respond to the commissioners on this particular recommendation.
Catherine,
okay.
thank you for helping me out there. My question really was around the word historical. If there's a significance to that modifier, what that means, are historical files everything before 1983, or is it everything before 2020, or what?
So I would say going all the way back, even before our land use decision. So there is a great deal of very interesting historical references to Camp Adair and how, we tell it the accidental landfill is, everybody kind of chuckles about that, but the reality is it kind of was that. It wasn't slated to be this, and it did occur. But it is interesting to read that. And there are certainly some documents pre-1974 that have value contextually. I would suggest that we just include the whole package, so that, which is why I didn't use the word land use in my friendly amendment, because I think there's just a lot of history there that will serve us far beyond just the land use conversation for folks that may want to look at that history.
So I think that Catherine also said continuously electronically. I don't know if we want to say those two. I mean, because Sister Mary, what's her name, and
No.
Sister Jane, whatever, probably wouldn't want me to say continuously electronically.
There we go.
Okay, great. Yeah, the part of the goal here is to not force people to go through a public records request to get information.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. Jeff, are you concerned? Is Republic concerned about sharing any of the history? I'm thinking that they probably have their own library that could add to this, which could be really helpful.
These are all public records. The more information is out there, the better. We don't have any objection to that. We think it would be a good idea.
Yeah, I think maybe we want to capture that. Mark, your point about having to make public records requests, I mean, that just feels like crazy making for decisions that have been made in the past. I would be inclined to say something about create a comprehensive library and make it publicly available. When you say historic documents or historic files, it just creates a kind of a question, like, are there non-historic files somewhere, and are those treated differently? I would just say, let's make a record, a library,
So
if you will.
would you change historical files then to a comprehensive library? Is that a good substitute?
Well, I'm just throwing it out there for thought and to help us get to agreement, because I think we're very much on the same page. And to be honest, I think the board is going to welcome this recommendation kind of, with open arms and wholeheartedly.
There we go. Way to go, Inga.
Get rid of historical, though? Isn't that what we're saying?
Mhm.
Because I was viewing this from the side of we just did the CUP, and that was just reviewing historical files.
Is-
Some websites and some jurisdictions I've seen have all the land use files and all of the submittals going back 15 to 20 years. Some have not gone back and uploaded the former paper files, which sounds like what the county did this time, but that it's very helpful. I represent other clients besides Republic, and when I have to go back and find something, having it all available on a website is outstanding. And so I think if the county develops something like this, I don't think you want to limit it to Coffin Butte. I think you ought to do it for all of your significant land use decisions.
Yeah, but we need to focus just on getting.
Right. Yeah. No, I
So
understand.
Jeff-
I don't have any objections with the language, but I would think that would be a really helpful as you're
Beneficial.
looking at your upgrade to your website. Although, the new website's going to be up in 6 months. I had that at our firm.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well, and now Jeff,
Um,
to your recommendation, I expect to see you at the, sooner than later Benton County Commissioner and Benton County Planning Commission meetings, providing that recommendation. I think that would be a great one on all land use files.
It's very helpful.
It is.
So I'd just like to point out that we need to make sure that we keep this somewhat organized, because Daniel Reddick maintains a document library under the SWAC window. And the last thing we want to do is just merge everything together so that finding something will be impossible, because there's a ton of documents in that document library under SWAC. So I think this is great. The focus here, I think, should be on the land use documents because of all the other stuff that's under the SWAC document library. Just a point of clarity there.
Yeah, Mark, I think we're in agreement. I think we're saying the same thing. I'm just encouraging this group to be as clear as you can about how to treat files, because the board, I think, shares the opinion that it's been confusing, and the planning commission feels that way too. So the more clear we can be about what it is that we're asking for, that will be well received.
Is there any value? We've talked a little bit about public records requests, just to put a trailer on the end of that recommendation, just say, and to reduce public records requests needs. I know we're saying it. Do we want to lead it in that recommendation? Because that not only costs money to the public, but it costs staff time. So is it relevant for that recommendation? So that R2 to increase accessibility and reduce public records request needs, or needs for public records requests. And if not, I'm okay, but we did talk about it a little bit here.
I think that's a good suggestion, Catherine, and I'm in support. Not that you need me, but yeah.
And it's avoid the need for public record requests. That should help reduce staff.
I would, this is the lawyer in me. I would say and reduce the needs for public records requests, because
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
It's not necessarily avoid.
that suggests you want to violate the law, which
Okay. So we're still going on. And this goes back a little bit to Darren, which you said we had the thing about the finding about not enforcing land use decisions and monitoring them. And this is the reverse side to monitor and enforce. And that was really based on a statement from a couple of the county attorneys saying that's what happens. So we just have taken that statement and said, well, it's good to know that it's not being monitored and enforced. It has to be based on a complaint from the public. But we came down and saying, no, it really shouldn't just be based on complaints. You should actively monitor and enforce land use decisions, conditions of approval. And the last time we got hung up on whether it should be landfill to limit it down, which might be a little bit harsher on just on the landfill, or just expand it to everything and just have the county look at that process. Mark, did I get that about right?
Yes, that was right.
Yeah, and Ed, I'm comfortable with the recommendation. I actually think I think it's great. It's good. It's just good public process. It's actually the finding that gave me just a slight bit of heartburn, because you say that it has not and does not. And actually, by going through this process, we are beginning to track and watch land use decisions that we weren't able to before, in part because the files were trapped in boxes in, I think, 7 different locations in Benton County. So I'm just kind of
We're just blind to that. You know, that's not part of our order to look at what was going on right now. So we got stuck between a rock and a hard place here.
Yeah.
With county staff saying you don't do this, and we're just reporting it in that sense.
Yeah, no, I think it's fine. I'm splitting a hair here, but it's an important hair, because I think the Benton County wants to do the right thing. And the fact that we're having this conversation is a really big, important step to doing the right thing in real time and going forward. So when the finding says that we don't, well, I know what you're saying, and I agree that we haven't. But we're actually making a big step forward. And I don't want to penalize the board or our staff too much because we are trying to do the right thing. And so, it's a subtle nuance, but let's encourage good behavior as
Yeah.
opposed to,
But we also have to recognize there are folks in the public that have a perception that it's not been done. So you're acknowledging
agreed.
that it hasn't been done, and you're just also saying, we've heard you and we are doing something. And outside of this report,
Yep.
what just citing what you said. So I think you have a good positive story, acknowledging what people have been upset about, and then saying you're already in process for making things better in the future.
Darren, to your point, is there, just a shift in a single word could make that statement a little more comfortable, like splitting of those hairs? Is there is there some recommendation that you're proposing?
I don't want to get us hung up too much. The recommendation is fine. The recommendation is
The
totally.
finding, right, in the finding.
The finding says has not and does not, and I'm suggesting that I agree with has not. I totally agree with has not. I'm not sure that I agree with does not, in the fact that this process is actually the first big step to changing that behavior. That's all.
So
But
Inga, I'm curious in taking a look at that finding just on the screen. And then Mark and Ed, I'm curious how you are about the word does, or the phrase does not. Has not historically, we all agree on, I know that. If does not is giving an incorrect message or even a biased message, that's not the right word. If it's leaning in the wrong direction, can we?
The problem here is this is almost a direct quote from either
It
Greg.
was from Vance. It was from Vance early on in this process in one of the legal review subcommittee meetings.
And it was put in the introductory part of the CUP report on the legal subcommittee. And we've gone around this probably 20 or 30 times.
Yeah.
all right, let's move on.
Appreciate that, Darren. And
Yeah.
Darren, I have to say, I appreciate your sensitivity to it.
Yeah.
But the reality is, the fact that you say we're going to start enforcing today doesn't really mean anything to anyone, particularly when the county attorney basically did say that we never have actively monitored these and further, he said, and no counties do. And so it was pretty emphatic. And I think the other piece is that the evidence that we have in reviewing all the land use files clearly indicates that no enforcement has been done. And I think the county agrees that, and I think you said it here, that you don't proactively monitor conditions of approval. Now, maybe going forward as part of this process, you will. But we're dealing with today.
So 2 comments, and I'll be quiet on this one, but I'm just going to throw it out as I hear you. One thing that we could do to support that statement in its kind of a direct quote is to link it to that where it is in the introductory space that you were referring to it. The other possibility is to just add a trailer of sorts or a second sentence that says, however we want to word it, but that this subcommittee recognizes that Benton County is taking actions to correct this, which this process is that space. And that way we're stating a fact of historical value and truths. What the staff has told us from the county attorney's perspective, there's no possibility for, the fact that somebody could read it and say the subcommittee came up with this, because we can point to that, but that we are also acknowledging that this process is a step in the right direction. And I'll let you all debate that or just move on, either one.
I think you've made your point, and I think I've made mine. The fact that we have these conditions in front of us today is actually evidence of the fact that we are monitoring. Whereas a year ago, 2 years ago, we didn't know it was in the 83 or the 74 or the Schnecketa plan because those were hidden in a box somewhere. Now they're front and center. We're putting them in front of ourselves, which is the first step to actively monitoring. And Mark, I also hear you saying, I hear you very clearly that, we've said we're not actively or haven't, but from this point forward, we should be supporting doing the right thing. And this process is the first huge step to moving Benton County in the right direction from a public expectation standpoint. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we married up the recommendation.
All right.
So,
All right. We've said it. Thank you.
And
Just
this
to-
was,
just-
really
sorry,
getting-
sorry, Ed, just for a second, just a heads up, I have to bail at 4:48. So when I sign off, I'll let you know, but sorry about that. Sorry, I have to leave a little early today.
Okay. 4:23 right now.
Yep.
This one was looking for, it was based on looking at the historical records and see if there was a process for handling complaints. We did not see it. We recognize that there is something in place on the county website now. We were just trying to emphasize that it's a good thing to do. There was a complaint, not a complaint, it's a point being made at the 23rd, the February 23rd large group meeting about not usurping the powers of elected officials. So that redlining is really trying to address that concern in saying that this is just an administrative appeals process that does not interfere with the ability to appeal to the Board of Commissioners if you don't think you're getting the right answers. But it's also being more quantitative and have a system that follows up on complaints and also communicates essentially a scorecard to the board in its normal, as part of its normal business. Understandable?
Mhm.
The only question I have is, I'm not sure the Board of Commissioners are the ultimate appeals authority. They are one informal appeals authority, but someone could go to court and force the county to, well, no, I guess this is complaints. This is not conditions. So Jeff, is this past legal muster, the ultimate appeals authority on complaints?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, the county has to actively initiate enforcement on a complaint, and the Board of Commissioners has the final say on whether they do that. So I think it's not really a formal appeals process, and so saying that they're the ultimate appeals authority is probably misspeaking, as you note, but they are the ultimate decision maker on this, and anybody, of course, can go. And when I read this, and Catherine and Mark, tell me if you think I'm wrong, is that you want a more formalized process for bringing a complaint in front of the Board of Commissioners if staff decides there's no basis to enforce. So, and of course, that happens all the time anyway. And so having a process in place where somebody can petition the board to enforce a condition, I think is, I don't have any problem with that.
Good.
Okay, sounds good.
Can we say administrative authority instead of ultimate appeals?
Administrative would be better.
I don't know how that sentence reads now.
Benton County Commissioners is the administrative authority, the complaint process.
Inga, is
Okay.
it possible to kick that up just a little bit? Zoom in just a smidge. It got teeny.
Sure.
Somewhat. That helps.
That's a little too large for me, but I'll just move this guy out of
You
the
can-
way.
Good, yeah,
Oh,
about two
stop
clicks
it.
back was about perfect right there.
Again, I was, what the intent was to not to address the other work group members' concern about an administrative process usurping the power of a political entity, elected officials.
Yeah, there was discussion that they didn't want the ultimate authority to be staff,
Right.
but so
Well, I think code compliance, I mean, I'm not sure how the process will be going forward, but currently, if we decide to pursue a complaint, then it actually goes to the judge, doesn't go up to the,
Yeah, and see, this one was supposed to be something that Darren can handle. It doesn't have to go to the board every time. But
So-
that the Board of Commissioners has the ultimate decision. If the staff said one thing, Darren agreed, then the next step would be going to the Board of Commissioners.
So here's some possible language that does it, that we could do it. It says, you have establishing and widely advertising a county process receiving, tracking, resolving complaints. This administrative process should include an appeal to the Board of County Commissioners.
No, should
No?
be an administrative one that one level down from the Board of Commissioners.
Well,
You don't want to keep
administrative,
throwing things up to the Board of Commissioners. You'd like to have, in this case, I think we were just saying, have something as one of the administrators is the first line of appeals.
So this all just got really muddy because we're talking about first to process, and complaints generally do not go to the board first, like staff, right? They usually land in that staff space first, but
Mhm.
we're also talking about that ultimate, there should be a right of appeal to the commissioners from a complainant who may not agree with a staff decision on a complaint. Am I in the right space? Because now we have different things going on in this conversation.
I think it's only because the editing hasn't caught up yet. So if you could just finish this sentence, the administrative process should include an appeal of the planning official's decision to the Board of Commissioners. And then
But
you can
our
take out the rest
sorry.
of that sentence. And that is what, in fact, you're saying. That's what I
But-
heard you said.
No.
But I'm hearing complaints as in like noise complaints, odor complaints, which we don't like, those types of complaints, which are not planning. They're like who's the planning official? Is it the planning commission? Is it staff?
You know, it's Darren. It's a term of art in the code.
Right.
So
And that's how I'm hearing it. So this sentence is not aligned. I mean, that's how I understand it. This sentence is still not aligning with that. So we're establishing a process for receiving, tracking, and resolving. Let's just use noise complaint as the example of complaints. It's not an official. It would be a complaint, but it's not like a land use complaint. And so where does it go from there? So we have staff first. If we do not like Darren's staff decision, then we're asking to establish an appeals process. Is that still correct? On an
Yes.
odor complaint, right? For the example we're using.
If we
So-
start off with the first sentence where it says resolving complaints such as relating to odor, noise, other nuisance issues, just to set it so we know what kind of complaints we're talking about.
Well, couldn't it include a complaint that we're not following a condition of approval?
Yes, exactly, and it should.
Yeah. I
Or
think so too.
operating hours of operation even is another in this bundle of
Yep.
potential complaints.
So I'm not 100% comfortable using the planning official in this way. The planning official is the state statutory designated person who is responsible to interpret land use decisions, make and interpret land use decisions. I'm not sure you actually want to muddy the water in that way.
That
I
was,
also-
I put that in there.
Yeah, I think I see what you're trying to do and I agree, but I also want to ask a question. Isn't this the role that's currently delegated to the Solid Waste Advisory Council by the Board of Commissioners?
I don't know that.
So, so I'll speak to that. My understanding is the Disposal Site Advisory Council, which meets quarterly,
Mhm.
is the body that is delegated to receive public complaints. But the Solid Waste Advisory Council and the Disposal Site Advisory Committee are the same people, and they have no means or methods to do anything for receiving, tracking, or resolving complaints. I think, no, we haven't been meeting for quite some time. I think that the only avenue of response by the Disposal Site Advisory Committee would be to refer it to Daniel, because he's the staff person.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with the need for a process. I'm just not sure how prescriptive we want to try to get in this recommendation.
Well, so part of this comes out of the fact that, part of the circle is that there's not a proactive enforcement or monitoring of conditions of approval, that the county relies on complaints to drive any enforcement or investigative action. And the fact that there is no formal process, apparently at one time, or maybe it still is true, that the code enforcement officer can receive complaints, but there is no, as far as we have been able to determine, there is no active record or file or anything that shows how complaints are received, documented, responded to, and or resolved. So that's where this was headed. It's gotten a little more, quite a bit more muddy in our conversations
Yeah.
the more we talk about it, but that was the objective.
Let's go back here. It's really coming from I'm driving down 99 and there's this horrendous odor. Who do I call and lodge a complaint with? And how do they receive it, track it, resolve it, and report about it? It was just a simple outward facing tracking type system.
So I'd like to propose a language shift here just a bit. So establish and increase awareness of a reporting process for receiving, tracking, and resolving complaints, such as this administrative process should include an ability to appeal to a higher decision-making body or whatever, just should include an appeals process even, and just stop it right there, because all of these, how that gets developed won't happen in this statement.
Right. And I'm okay
So-
with that, but I was just responding to the gentleman at the large meeting. So,
Well, and I'm just right. And so that was an interesting comment that I disagreed with, because this is a staff space and that has nothing to do with an elected space. And so it should follow a normal process.
right.
That was a very interesting comment. We'll just, oh, no, so not there,
No,
Inga.
not there.
No, so back up what you just put in. So complaints such as odor, and then take that next sentence and just make it this administrative process should include an appeals process, and just stop right there. And then I think what we're trying to say at the bottom is somehow recognizing, so that reporting piece, a record of those complaints and making sure that we capture those records of complaints, because that too, whether it is SWAC and DSAC, wherever that authority lands, making sure that we capture those reports of complaints, I think is that last sentence. And I didn't get far enough to say that, you know, just ensuring that there is a mechanism for, I don't know, reporting the nature, number, and resolution of complaints. I think we're getting too wordy, and we're all in that same space of where we're headed, but if we can just make the recommendation and let this deliberation process go somewhere else.
I think we're
I would say reports, not information regarding, just meaning that a little bit formalizes it. And Ed and Mark, is that where we have headed with this? Again, there's like 3 separate things in here. We want to increase awareness of the reporting. We also want to make sure there's a process of appeals. And that third sentence being that we'd like to see a report that is regularly provided to the Board of Commissioners. And do we want to also add, you know, we've got DSAC in this conversation. Who do we want the reports to go to? Maybe we want to clarify that here, maybe we don't, but we do have 3 very distinct requests in this recommendation.
I think the intent was to try to get the public, give them a sense that their complaints are being heard, and the Board of Commissioners is aware of there are complaints. How the board deals with them, distributing them to SWAC or the Landfill Advisory Group, that's an internal administrative process. I don't think you want to go through specifying who it's supposed to. This is more, for me at least, it's more of, again, making sure folks in the community know that there's a system and that their voices are being heard. So you don't have to make it super long and super detailed. Looking at which is on the county website for other matters, you're 95% of the way there.
So what if we add establish and increase public awareness in this statement?
You have it. Well, that was in there before, but you took it out now. That's all right. It's fine. You're at it. That's okay.
Jeff?
I think that's a separate thought. I think you want to establish, increase a reporting process for receiving, tracking, and resolving complaints, blah, 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 blah. And including a process for including a public awareness or public outreach process so people realize they have this option or something along that line.
So back to what Ed had originally written, which was establish and widely advertise the reporting process, but whichever.
Oh, that doesn't work there, Inga.
Yeah, it's not, yeah.
Yeah.
How about we put it back in the beginning then? That phrase at the beginning, we've added increased public awareness. Well, now I don't know where we're at actually.
I think what Mark was suggesting of Ed's original language makes the most sense. Establish and widely advertise a reporting process.
And that works better for me because increase awareness sounds like there's already an existing program And there's not at the moment. So establishing and advertising the existence of this program is, I think, what we were trying to achieve there. And then Inga, maybe in the last sentence, just to clarify, the Board of Commissioners add in.
I have a question for this group. Should that last sentence of the reporting be recommendation 4.5, which would shift all of our numbers? So ensuring a mechanism for reporting.
I mean, make it a separate
A
recommendation.
separate recommendation.
Yeah, when looking at a bunch of these things, you could do that to probably, I don't know, a third of these recommendations, put them as a sub line item, and that's just a different format.
Yeah, I think it's part of the same thought and should
Okay.
stay linked with the other one.
Good with that? Just tossing it out for consideration.
Always good.
And we're knocking on a handful of minutes before Mark has to leave. I also have to leave pretty close to that 5 o'clock mark to get to a 6 o'clock in-person meeting. So
That's, I think the R35 could get changed instead of being unfettered, use the language that was used on the other system so that they parallel each other. The other one is,
Isn't that the same?
the other thing is get rid of it because it may be too close.
Well, it seems like it's the same, or it's a variation of the same one we talked about before about making the land use or the county decisions available to the public. So that seems to be what this is saying too.
so is,
If you go up a little bit, you might be able to see what
This one.
while you're scrolling up, I'm
what it
gonna,
has to do with the appendix in the report. So what's different about it? Uh, 5 is for ongoing.
Mhm.
R2 is for historical documents. And you could probably combine them somehow.
So to Mark's point of keeping SWOC separate and not merging that, I would definitely not be in support of merging, going ahead to land use applications with this historical body of work. I don't know if our recommendation is only Coffin Butte land use applications. I would hesitate to not have some distinction between what has occurred up to leading into this report, which so historical, I'm back at that word, sorry, Darren. But, and then moving forward, right? There will be other things moving forward. I don't know, I don't want them to get lost, the same way that Mark was concerned about getting SWOC documents and reporting lost.
Because this is really just a subcommittee we're trying to do. Darren has graciously expanded it.
I am fine with it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we're on the same page.
if we just change the wording to make it similar, Inga at the bottom, posted county records for that land use and posted and electronically and continuously available, or however you want to make it sound, but
Yeah.
unfettered. That's a big word there. Got it.
Hey,
I think we had fun with unfettered in our meeting.
We
did
did.
we not?
We did. That was
No.
one of our six o'clock meetings after
It
3
was,
hours.
I think we were wordsmith fatigued by that point anyhow, but that landed the message.
but I'm glad there's enough of a structure here that you can come to something useful. This is good.
Mhm.
All right, I'm gonna have to bail, folks. So
Thank you, Mark.
thank you. Yeah. I'm not sure when we're meeting next. I'm sure there's a meeting tomorrow, but I don't know which group or what time. So
Next
Just-
Monday.
I know when we are, but there's just other meetings going on. All right. Good to see everyone.
Ciao.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yep.
That's the issue we're going to address again anyway.
It's the curse of the ing.
Out, damn spot. It's not letting me.
I'm glad this happens to you too.
I'm surprised this document isn't running screaming from the room at this point.
I think there should be like certifications that you can receive for being a master of editing in real time, because it's terribly, there's a lot of pressure on that space, and inevitably you're hitting the wrong keys way more than you normally would.
Right.
And you're doing it publicly, so.
So Jeff, what about the red language? I mean, well, Ingo can do the explain instead of explaining all that later, but
So R7 really was just that we don't know, and it's not really our job to determine those regulatory conditions. And there's a lot of conversation around that. So it was really just, the recommendation is that whomever is going to determine that site plan and narrative conversation in the 83 documents.
Right, and going, so that closes that out. And going to the explaining part of it, that was put in there just to give an example of how it could be done. Explaining might not be the right word, but with somehow get the three parties, DEQ, Republic, and the county, to get together and come up with a plan and have the county explain the plan to the public. There are issues of DEQ's minimum reclamation requirements, and that's the the reference that's shown, and those are different from what's been proposed in prior land use decisions. So it's like time to get everybody together and say what is practical to do now. So the intent was clarify, the three entities come together and clarify what is an appropriate reclamation, communicate it to the public. You could have stopped at the black words.
Could we just use the word example on the front end of that and use the word again, clarify? So repeat that, clarify to the public with DEQs. But I agree that this was an important example that helped the narrative of what we're recommending here for R8. And we actually do need the ing. No, we probably don't. Does that, Ed, does that capture that sentiment just because we've stopped the recommendation and we're providing an example?
Yeah, because I think we're trying to say that the county has to be the lead in communicating to the public.
and it's not just, well, I mean, I understand you want to emphasize this, but this needs to be clarified, not just to the public. It needs to be clarified with all three of the parties at the table, what that thing is going to look like.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Because, clarifying to the public right now would be simply mean, yeah, well, we don't know. We haven't figured it out yet.
Okay, I can see that view.
So for example, clarify and publish, reclamation requirements, or whatever you want, something about that.
So, and
So-
you are suggesting strike the to the public part?
Yeah, I mean, because I think it needs to be done, period. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, all this needs to be conveyed to the public, but I mean, for example, clarify with DEQ or public assistance and published. I mean,
Would
we're
you put
still,
and, would you put and
Go-
publish on the front end? That's the way you stated it, or would you?
yeah, clarify and publish. For example, the county should clarify and publish, because we want to have an actor in there. The county should clarify and publish. And I,
A plan, a consensus plan with DEQ and Republic.
yeah, for example, the county should clarify. But is it really negotiate? I mean, for example, the county should negotiate and a clear reclamation plan is what you're trying to get at.
You could use it.
Well, I think that, my concern about this is that DEQ has some very specific requirements for what the reclamation plan is. And those have changed in the last 40 years pretty substantially and are likely to change again before we get to adoption of the final reclamation plan. And those regulations are going to be something we have to comply with, the public has to comply with, and there may not be a lot of flexibility
Yeah,
with
that's
regard to
why
what those
again,
requirements are.
The point is the DEQ only provides minimum requirements. And you do have to comply with that. But there's nothing that precludes doing something above the minimum requirements. And an example would be the slopes. The DEQ is going to tell you, I think we've used the analogy that the slopes can't exceed a certain, you can't have 80-degree slopes because everything will fall down the hill. But you can have 45 degrees, that's our minimum, but there's nothing that says, well, you can't make the top two cells 30 degrees or 10 degrees to make them flatter and more serviceable for a walking path or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think the county would be preempted from requiring that.
So Jeff, can I
No,
ask this
not-
question? Because this is an ongoing public conversation and concern, both because of what's gone on in the past and not really understanding that reclamation space, would it be more appropriate to recommend that the county update and maintain a reclamation plan with DEQ and Republic's assistance? Meaning, we know that changes could happen over the course of this when we finally get to that reclamation space. What I think this recommendation is leaning into is that we are, as a county, with Republic and DEQ's, whatever those requirements might be, and Republic's participation in this space, that we come to a consensus on where we're at with reclamation. So we can answer all of those public concerns. So if we just update and we maintain that updating as things may change, would that meet better the concerns?
Yes.
So is maintain and update an okay word or phrase that you would be comfortable with? So maintain a reclamation plan? Or think out loud on a different
Yeah,
phrasing,
no,
right? I see where
Yeah,
you're
no,
at.
and see, the county,
The county has control of the land uses.
right, and reclamation is
Undermines the land use. If you only reclaim it to be an open pit mine, and the county said it was supposed to be a park, that's a conflict.
Well, and that reclamation plan could just be as simple as to say is this is what DEQ requires us, but we're providing it to the public to address this particular issue.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And I'm even fine with having the county work with DEQ and the Republic on the final reclamation plan. But what I'm not comfortable implying the county can, the county has a regulatory role in determining what that final reclamation plan will look like. I mean, they're not going to let us have an open, DEQ is not going to let us have an open pit mine, and there may be some things that we can do that's consistent with the DEQ reclamation plan that might be more consistent with what the county would like to see. And I think we'd be willing
That's
to
the
do
right
that.
idea. That's the right idea.
But
So-
there are some things that might, it's just that it's a highly regulated area, and where DEQ says this is what you have to have, this is what we have to have. And I'm fine with providing information and maintaining the plan, and I think that's a good idea.
Where we're talking past each other a little bit, Jeff, is you're viewing the DEQ as the only plan. And I'm viewing it as a minimum standard, the way the laws are written. That doesn't, and there's no, I've seen things done that are beyond the minimum. It's negotiated. It's not part of a regulatory requirement, but it doesn't conflict with the regulatory requirement.
And Jeff, can I ask you, is there a certain set of words or phrases in here that you think suggests that the county has authority over DEQ? I didn't read that into this, but if there's something that's misrepresenting that or leaning that way, is there a space in here that you see that?
Yeah, at the beginning, for example, the county should update and maintain a reclamation plan. So the county can't do that. DEQ does that.
Yeah, I think you need to try to get everybody to the table first to discuss what the reclamation should be. So that's where it was woefully early on.
Yeah, let me see. We've been on my side, we've been going through all these conditions one by one and taking a look at them, and we haven't gotten to this one yet. And I really need to. I am not, I'm a land use attorney, Jim, not a environmental attorney. So I really need to talk about, what's involved in the reclamation plan. What are some of the requirements for reclamation? How much authority do we really have to, for example, change the slope if in fact the DEQ regulations require a certain slope? So, and that is not something I can answer here. But let's put a marker on this. I think we know where we all want to get.
Could you just go back to the original one? Yeah, here, leave the original one in place, because I think it was much less.
Yeah, I was fine with the original one, because I think that would be something we can live with.
So this is where we change it to an example. We made that red part just an example. And then the explaining word got changed.
How about the county should explain to the public, with DEQ's and public's assistance, the minimum reclamation standards. And I think the rest of that is okay, because I think we would be willing to work with the public and DEQ to establish an acceptable reclamation plan for the community.
So the only issue I just want to underscore is, so that it doesn't get lost, because we're not going to have time to visit this more than one more time, is what I believe to be Ed's point. If DEQ says the slope can be no more than 45 degrees. That doesn't mean the county can't come in and negotiate with you and say, we would like it can be no more than 45 under DQ, but we would like it to be 25, no more than 25 degrees, or in some cases flat, so that it could be a walking trail, a park, a dog facility, what have you. Is that the point, Ed?
Exactly.
And so that's it gets back to I don't want to miss the potential preemption issue here. So maybe in parentheses, somewhere you can put, preemption issue, question mark, so we don't lose that thought.
Okay. And that's not the intent. It's to meet all DEQ's requirements.
How many more of the Rex do we have? I'm really hoping we can get through. Okay.
They should flow easily.
Why should that start happening
So
now?
we're halfway through with an hour and a half into these.
Jeff, have you read these yet? Have you had time to read these yet, or
I read I read and commented on the last iteration, but I haven't read, and I'm assuming these are from the ones that Ed set out today.
Yeah, yesterday, but it was jammed. It was trying to.
Yeah, no, I've been.
So it's.
So I could do the same thing that we did after the last meeting. I could go through these and comment on them and then send them out to the group. That might be faster than trying to wordsmith these in the extra. Oh, we're already 3 minutes over for the rest of the time. And I can actually stay later tonight, but Catherine has to go. So I think it'd be better to do it that way. And Mark's not here.
So I think that's right. I mean, I'm thinking out loud. I mean, in a perfect world, by close of business on Friday, if you and the dream team over there could just send back and forth drafts and see if you can land the plane and send, and then so on Monday when we meet again, we only have to deal with hopefully 2 or 3 wordos or typos or grammar issues, and then we can move on.
And Inga, would you mind, before you send out this new updated version, can you cancel out all the INGs and change them into that correct text? You've done such a great job so far. But I see
Yes,
the rest
I
of
can
them
do that.
will need to have the ings stricken, not the Ingas, just the ings, INGs.
Oh,
Yeah,
good line.
Sounded
Good
too
line.
close. So
Very good line.
Yes.
update those would be very helpful and appreciated. We really did not. Yeah, it just makes it hard to read. I don't know why.
Right.
Yeah, I can do that. So I'll do that, and then I will send this out to everyone. Jeff and his team are going to make comments, suggest changes, and then we'll get that by Friday. No one else touch it. No more changes from you guys. Subcommittee.
Until we meet on Monday to
Yes.
finish them.
Oh, so we have nothing to do till Monday. Excellent.
No, wait, I'll find you something else.
Yeah,
Just a minute.
great. Good idea. Nope, no.
Yeah. So, but Inga, what else do we need to accomplish? Because on Wednesday, we're getting out draft 5. So what else does this group need to do besides finishing these hanging chads here for Rex?
I need the document for the, no, I can't even remember. I think it was the 1983 decision, land use decision. So Mark had made that memo, and then Jeff, you were going to respond to that. So
Okay.
that's going to be linked to one of these I believe it's a finding, so I need that document.
And
Yep,
we
no,
have
that's my
finalized,
bad. I haven't finished it yet.
so
Uh,
we've, sorry.
I can send it. Mark resent it a little while ago, but I'll bring it forward to you. I'll show it to show you
If
where it
you've
is.
got it at your fingertips there, Ed, could you send it to me again?
Sure. I'll just redistribute.
Is that, Inga, we've got all of our introductory language and all that. We are actually like, we've completed. those-
Yeah, that was done, I think, when
Yeah.
I had to leave that day, so you guys had agreed upon the language.
I don't think we finalized it.
I'm not 100% sure. That's why I'm asking, but just tossing it out. And I do have to go. So I'm going to
Okay.
let you all go. And if any of you are
Take
going to
care,
be,
Catherine.
yep. Have a good night. Thank you.
Ed,
Night.
take care, Catherine. Ed, when you say you're not sure we finalized it, that's because what do you think is missing from the finalization?
I don't think we talked about it at all.
I thought Jeff approved it. You guys sent it in and Jeff said it was fine.
That's what I recall.
Okay. This is
So
the, had the numbers in it and the chart in it and that kind of stuff.
It had the references to those in it.
Maybe Inga, if you can pull it up real quickly, because I was under the understanding that we're good to go on the quote unquote introduction. So let's make sure we have the right version thereof. And then I, of course, am going to suggest we have a joint meeting with the legal subcommittee on the introduction again. Kidding, this is a joke.
I quit, Sam.
I don't blame you. I'll quit with you.
And I'll be sending in some comments on the legal findings and recommendations. I should have those done tonight. And it'll just be word changes and some comments, not just comments.
I think it's this 213.
It sounds about the right time.
You got to stop sharing this one.
No, that's the other one. Nope. Where the heck did it go? Come on, open up.
Nope.
Does not want to open. Let me go find the email. A lot of emails from you, Ed.
Sorry. So all these meeting reports and I keep getting warnings from Zoom about I'm exceeding my capacity. That's looking about right.
So I
Scroll down.
think this is it. You've got all the,
That's the last one.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure I reviewed that, but Inga, if you could send that along with
So nice to have it done.
Yeah, I'll forward the email over.
You'll catch an email that I'm heading to Eugene on Wednesday to look at the 30 boxes.
Mhm.
DEQ
Make sure you take pictures because we need to have it for the, I'm being serious, for the report.
make sure you take a bottle of scotch.
record.
Or you can stop by OLCC and get some of that famous scotch for, you know, is that too soon? That comment's too soon, probably.
Yeah. I've never even had some. Now with all the articles, I want to give it a try. I mean, if I can find some, I may have to get on the OLCC board to do that. Oops, did I say?
Yeah, yeah. All right.
We're good then.
Thanks so much, everyone. Go forth, do good, avoid evil.
Yes.
I can't
Night.
promise that. Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.